Alright guys, yet again, this is probably like take 3 on this video because I keep getting interruptions because I'm using a phone, and guess what, it's my business phone, so it's getting blown up. So I'm sorry. I'm going to try to get this all done in one take, one breath, one deal. Maybe talking a little bit fast, but this is a John Deere 737. It had 23 horsepower Kawasaki on it. The 23 horsepower Kawasaki that was on it was starting to have a huge amount of blow-by. It blew all the seals out of it. It was blowing oil everywhere. It was making a mess. The machine actually caught on fire, had an oil fire and things like that. So this is a 23 horsepower Kawasaki engine. It's spec'd exactly for this machine. It's the exact same thing as this. It was $2,100 from Small Engine Warehouse. This video is being done in March. What is today? March 7th, March 8th, 2021. So this whole setup is not just a bolt-on. So of course you got to do your PTO, and you got to take the stand off for the PTO to hold the PTO. You also have to remove your output shaft, prop shaft, set up for the front of the engine to be able to drive your Serpentine system. There's several different options for this machine. There was another dual pump setup and another the Serpentine belt tensioner setup that ran on the inside of the belt, not the outside. This one runs on the outside. So John Deere like to do a lot of product changes right in the middle of a run and stuff like that. So I'm not exactly sure of that, why they would do stuff like that. This machine, this engine here, also did not come with the exact voltage regulator for this machine, for the John Deere. So you have to change the voltage regulator over, which is not hard, and you got to use the wire harness for that voltage regulator, which it doesn't come with that stuff. So you got to supply that stuff. You got to pull it off that engine. So don't tear that stuff up unless it's already ridiculously torn up. They also come with a new starter, but it is not the same style starter that is on the old engine. The old engine has a starter solenoid on it. This one is more like what's on a Briggs. So what you do is they recommend you use the old starter. I wasn't going to use the old starter on this machine because it obviously had a fire on it. The starter had gotten hot, and it was actually having a hard time turning that old engine over, even though that engine's down on compression and everything. So what we have here is a universal starter solenoid. You just run your hot wire from your battery over to one side. You use your original wire harness, and you run that to the hot side also. That's where you get all your power from. You run your switched on power side on your high side over to your starter, like I've done here. Pretty easy. And then this is universal, so it does not have a chassis ground made into the body of it, so you have to run a little jumper wire from the one pin right here. That's a ground. It runs over to the back. And then you run a power wire here. That's your switched on power source to hit that and then turn the starter. So what I do a lot of times with these is if I have to mount them, I'll try to make it where the bolt holes are really close to the body so that the nuts get jammed up against the side of the body, and that helps to where you can do it one-handed. You don't have to have two hands, especially if you're having to put that thing in a really hard to get to spot. It helps a lot. That harness runs over to the top of the engine, up underneath the breather assembly. This is some of the burnt up wiring that it burned from the outside in and not the inside out. So I'm thankful for that, so I don't have to rewire the whole machine. But so that wire harness comes over here, and you have that. That's where it plugs into the machine. And this one's damaged. I'm going to have to try to do something with this, but it's got pieces of the plastic are falling off where it got really hot. And like, here's your PTO. This is what they did for PTO, so I got to fix that too. But and then it has the original engine has a oil pressure switch on it. So, and that goes. This new engine does have a provision for it. It's a little plug right here. I hope I'm getting it in the camera. So I'm legally blind, so my camera angles may not be exact or what we need. You can cuss me out and make fun of me. I don't care. I'm just trying to make some videos and document some of the work I do, because if a blind man can do it, a lot of people will be able to do it, as long as you have the patience and stuff. But this engine was $2,100. You have to reuse a few of the old things, but not everything. The voltage regulator is what comes with it. You can keep that, put that off to the side, use it on something else later. If you're like me and you make a lot of hot rodded, little goofy or completely off the wall machines you need regulators for, there you go. The customer's going to have, I would recommend you put a new engine on. Go ahead and replace some of your belts if they show any signs of wear, because this new engine is going to make a lot more power than anything this machine's seen since it was new, and all the other stuff is old. So a lot of times what you wind up with is, yeah, I got a brand new engine on my machine and it's smoking belt now. Well, it's smoking a belt because none of the tension was set right now for the newer engine. The newer engine makes more power, and now you're frying the belts, and then you'll start to notice, like, oh, well, now the tensioner pulleys for the deck drive system are giving out and stuff like that. Well, that's happening a lot of times because you're putting a lot more strain on everything because you've got way more power than you used to. So 23 horsepower versus that thing might have been making, I don't know, the way it was running, I'd be surprised if it was making more than 12 horsepower. I couldn't believe it was actually turning the deck and moving the machine around good. It's barely running on 2 cylinders, and 1 cylinder is just only running at like 3,000 RPM. At idle, it wasn't even running on 2. But your muffler will swap over. It's the exact same thing. When you get these engines, they'll come with a little bag that's got some information you're probably going to want to know if you don't do this stuff all the time. You've got four new bolts for the exhaust and some new gaskets for the exhaust, and those are heavy-duty gaskets. They're not junk. They're not paper. They're metal, and they're good stuff. That's going to have all your break-in information, all your maintenance information for this engine for the initial startup. Another cool feature to this engine is not only does it have oil bungs down here, plugs down here where you can run either a remote oil filter or even oil coolers and stuff. That's what I think it's more made for. I've got a video probably coming up here for too long of how to install a remote oil filter system on an engine. But this little air box cover does something a lot of engines don't do anymore, and that's, you can turn it, you can clock it, and you have this little, that's where all your air comes in at, see, and you can turn this around, you clock it, and whatever, you got 4 options with the square breather. So I'm going to clock it like that, so that way it's facing the seat, because our discharge is over here, and we're not going to run the Murphy filter because when this machine caught on fire, it melted the bottom of the housing, and it melted the cup that goes over here on this side, which I can fix all that stuff, but this guy's not mowing commercially, and that's plenty of filter for him. All he's got to do is check it, blow it out, and use it the right way, instead of neglecting the machine like he did the first time around, which he's going to have more in it this time than he did the first time around. But I bet he takes better care of it now. And I could be wrong. He may have gotten it and didn't realize it was doing this stuff and just had some problems. But this is what we've got here. This is a John Deere 737. I can't tell you the serial number or model number of the machine, the long one, because that's missing. I don't know what happened to the sticker. But we're going to go through and put new deck wheels and everything on this machine because it's actually in pretty good shape. It just had an unfortunate mishap with an engine, and I think he's going to be very happy with this machine. But that was the cheapest thing we could find that was complete. You can find short blocks where you have to reuse the old cylinder heads and stuff, but this thing's been run low on oil several times, overheated several times. It's went through worst case scenario many times. I just don't want to reuse a bunch of that old stuff. That's why I try to stay away from the old starter, even though he said it had been replaced. I go to use it, and that starter got hot immediately, and so it may have even been, the old one may have even been what caused the oil fire, getting hot enough maybe to do that. I'm not sure. All I know is it had a fire, and it burnt a bunch of stuff up on that motor, engine, whatever you want to call it. But I hope this helps everybody out. Anybody who's got a John Deere 737. and you want to know if you can run just anything, I wouldn't run just anything. I'd try to run this, mainly because you're going to have issues with that prop shaft in the front. The PTO, yeah, we can fix that kind of stuff. We can shim it, whatever you got to do, put a spacer behind it. But that front part, you may have to take it to a machine shop and get a new bolt pattern drilled in it or something like that. And which, in a pinch, I guess, if you're going to find you a 25, 27 horsepower coder or something that already has that kind of setup made for it, you just got to make that one work, then yeah, I'd go for it. I think you may have to drill a bolt pattern or two to make it where it'll mount to the frame, but these weren't optioned. This particular model didn't come with anything but a cowie on it, so the cowie has 2 bolt spacings. But I mean, I think I got a 27 horsepower horizontal over there. I think it has the same setup. So a lot of these horizontal shafts, they all have the same bolt pattern. But this is the blind guy, mechanic, whatever you want to call it. I trying to make videos of stuff that I'm fixing, repairing, rebuilding, stuff that I've completely built from scratch, like that gantry crane. I've got a big crazy fan back there, and we do a lot of stuff around here. So I'm going to try to post as much videos as I can. It helps me to catalog what I'm doing. It helps other people see what's going on, and show you what God's gift to me has been. And that's, even though being 30% vision, I can still get around and do this stuff, keep at it, and go until I can't do it anymore. So I keep it messy, but I keep it running. Talk to you later. Y'all have a good one. If you subscribe, do that. If hit the little bell thingy that's supposed to do something. I see all these other videos where everybody's talking about that bell. I don't hit that bell, but you hit that bell for me, and we'll see how much we get going in here. We got all kinds of stuff to do.